The president has just given a major economic speech talking now about the headwinds coming out of Europe. Man, there's a lot of headwinds. There are a lot of excuses for this president. There's a lot of things that you could say, I didn't have responsibility of that. I didn't know that was going to happen. I didn't see this one coming. When he got into office, I don't understand what he said. It was a lot worse than what we were told. It's a lot worse. Really, President Obama, didn't you fly back during the election to vote on TARP? And at the time, they were saying that if we don't pass this by Friday, the entire economy will shut down. That the entire thing is over if we don't pass TARP. What is worse than that? How could it possibly be worse than what you were told? If that's what we were told, what were you told? And what's really happening? Have gremlins come out of the ground and start dragging our souls down into the pits of the earth? Is that what I'm not really sure how it gets worse than the end of our global system. But remember, he's gotten away with that. It was much worse than I was told. That's not possible. You were told it's the end of the system. Okay. Well, let the stupid people let him get away with that. But then he has gone through this whole thing and he says, we're on the mend. We've been telling you, no, we're not. No, we're not. We're fixing it. And Europe is fixing itself. No, it's not. It's not going to work. And what do they keep doing? They keep bailing things out. Now he comes out and says, we got another headwind. Oh, the stories coming out of Europe. We got headwinds. No, you don't have headwinds. You don't have headwinds. What you have is the collapse of the European system, and it is imminent. Now, one of Barack Obama's big sources, think of this connection, please. One of his big sources is George Soros. George Soros is the guy who is paying for the Center for American Progress. So those are all George Soros people. What has George Soros come out and said? That the euro is a bubble. It will be over in the next 3 months. George Soros is saying that. So there's no way that the guy who is paying for the organization that staffed the White House, the Center for American Progress, so all the people that work at the White House are coming from the Center for American Progress, the guy who's paying for their salaries when they're not working in the White House is saying, boy, Europe is a bubble and the euro's going to crash and it's the end of the system as we know it. There's no way that the president of the United States hasn't bumped into somebody in the hallway in the last 2 years and said, hey, you know what? Europe's a real problem. There's no way this is a surprise to the president of the United States. This is not a headwind that wasn't expected. Yet your friends have been told, again, just like we showed you yesterday with Stanley Kurtz, who has now proven that the president is a member of a socialist party. We have the transcripts now from the meeting where he stood up, signed their candidate's pledge, and became a member and asked for their support. We have the minutes of the meeting. But what did he do? When people said that was happening before we had the minutes of the meeting, he and his minions came out to discredit Stanley Kurtz. Discredit anybody who would say that was true, say it was absolutely untrue, and discredit them. What did the president do to anybody who said that Europe was going to be a problem, with an exception of George Soros? George Soros now, and for about a year, the two of us have been saying almost exactly the same thing. And what did they do to him? Did they ignore him? No. You don't ignore the most powerful man on the planet, and that's not the president, that's George Soros. You don't ignore the man who has paid the salary and helped you get up from the ranks. You listened to that man, so they knew. And yet they discredited anybody else that was saying Europe is going to collapse. And when it does, so do we. We're all tied together. Mutually assured economic destruction. The president has zero credibility on the economy. None. He knew because George Soros is in his circle of influence. And it's not like, oh, yeah, crazy George Soros is here. He's one of the master architects of this administration. Tell me, you're listening, you're taking advice from Warren Buffett, economic advice, but you're not taking advice from the guy who's collapsed 5 economies and 5 countries? Really? Come on. Of course you are. The president has no credibility. Let's take him at face value. He didn't know. He really thought it was the kiosks that were really going to be the problem. He didn't know. I mean, he didn't know they had kiosk and ATM machines in Europe, too. It's not a headwind. The guy's not qualified to be president of the United States. And you tell your friends exactly that way. You tell your friends, he knew. You mocked. It's now true. What you mocked is now happening. Maybe you should reevaluate what you think is true and who's telling you the truth and who's not. Okay. What they're going to do over in Europe is they're going to now start to push, again, as we said, push for things to be bigger. More bailouts, more printing of dollars, more printing of euros. They're going to talk about more centralization of finances. This will not work. It never will. If it's not working, nobody says, hey, you know what? I've got this big, huge gas-guzzling car, and I need it to be more efficient, fuel efficient. Let's make it bigger. And let's have the company that made it big and ugly and fuel inefficient, let's have them design the parts that we're going to add on to it to make it bigger. Let's have that company design the parts to do that. No, it's not. That's insane. But that's what they're going to do. They're going to push bigger. We're going to push for smaller. And not just politically. We have to find the people and connect with the people that are entrepreneurs. And we have to start surrounding each other and helping each other and putting our money where our heart is.